Hello, it's Jen again. I don't have a whole lot to talk about for updates this week, but I did get this awesome theory write-up from Just a One Girl about the Arcane Dice Wars characters and universe, and it got me thinking about just my thoughts and my approach with storytelling and reader interpretation. I personally believe that there is no one right way to consume art, even if the author or artist has a very I guess intentional message that they're trying to convey, and let's say one reader or viewer interprets it that way and then another viewer and reader interprets it a different way. I don't believe that the deviant perspective is necessarily wrong. And I think that's one of the things that I really like about story and art as a form of communication, as opposed to documentaries or things that are more factual. Why I choose to work in fiction and fantasy is because I do want my stories and characters to be more implicit than explicit. I want people to have the freedom to relate to the characters and stories in a way that they can make sense of their actions and motivations, where I want to give them enough reason to make it plausible, kind of nudge the player in a certain direction, but I don't want to spell out everything for them. And then that's kind of one of the reasons why I don't bother with character profiles either, as far as saying this is their height, their weight, their birthday, their zodiac sign, their all those details, because in my mind I would like the player to kind of be able to imagine those things for themselves, all those little details, without having to adhere to a canonical author dictating what these things are. And I guess there still are details that I tell the reader that are kind of hard to misinterpret, oh, this character has this color hair, or they have this color eyes, or their personality traits are fairly consistent. I think by the time the player reaches the current chapter with mission 9, they probably have a pretty good handle of who they're dealing with all the characters, especially if they've read all the different Bond conversations. And I wouldn't say that I'm trying to throw the player for a loop to say, oh, suddenly this character does this thing that really surprises you because you couldn't see that coming at all. I don't like those types of, I guess, what I think of as being a twist for the sake of shock, or kind of trying to throw the reader for a loop. I think twists are well done when the player can say, oh, I didn't see that coming, but then at the same time they're but when I think about it a little bit more, I'm not surprised, because there should have been some breadcrumbs or some kind of information somewhere along the way that would make it seem like it makes plausible sense. My work is not really sensational in any way, so at least I don't think it is. So there's that too. I try to avoid things like big lore dumps, because to be honest, when I'm playing games, I like things like character interactions, where you get an idea of what the character's like through their actions and what they say, instead of what their record says or what other people say about them. I like the subtle ways of getting to know a character and then determining for myself that, oh, this character is smart, or this character is sensitive, or this character is grumpy, or whatever it is, instead of having somebody say that they're grumpy, or to have them like kind of over the top a caricature of like grumpy. I would rather take the time to make those conclusions for myself over a series of interactions where like maybe they weren't grumpy all the time, but like when I look at the interactions as a whole, I'm like, yeah, they're kind of grumpy more often than you'd expect a person to be, like an average person who's not defined that way. So all my stories, I feel like they take a while to ramp up to get to know the characters. So I really appreciate the feedback that I got this week. That kind of feels like all the little stuff I've been building up towards were kind of, all the little crumbs were kind of being put together. So that was really exciting to read, and I did feel pretty good about it from a writing standpoint, that a lot of the things that I was trying to hint towards or direct the player towards, a lot of that was confirmed. At least with this one player, that they were able to kind of piece together a lot of the things that I was trying to say. So yay, I feel really good about being able to accomplish that. I'm not a real confident writer. I think that's one of the reasons why I always preferred to work in comics and now in visual novels, is because even though I'm a pretty avid reader, and actually I would say these days I prefer to read for my entertainment than I do most other formats, because I spend so much time on screens with my game development and stuff, that it feels like nice to like not have all the extra sensory inputs. Like it feels nice to just be able to focus on words and be in this more quiet space where I'm not really looking at, you know, I guess visually overwhelming things, and I'm not having to take in sound and all these other things that actually I really like about working in games. Like I like the fact that it has all these different like sensory aspects to the storytelling. But I guess in my own leisure time these days, I've just been pretty old school with wanting to read. That is, I guess, going back to my childhood and growing up, you know, having an early childhood before the internet was a thing and tablets and screens were really a thing. So some kids like to watch a lot of TV, and I certainly did like to watch TV, but I spent a lot of time just drawing and reading, more than I did spend watching TV, I think, because I had 3 siblings, and most of the time what everybody else was watching on TV was stuff I wasn't that interested in. So I'm getting off on a tangent. As I was trying to talk about with the character writing and my approach to writing Arcane Dice Wars, is that I think I will always go the path of better to have too little than too much. And I feel that way about most things in life in general. It's better to keep the reader wondering or wanting for more than it is to overwhelm them with information and leave them kind of like bored or tired of what you're presenting them. And I feel this way about music and stuff too, especially. I like a song that will end leaving me wanting more. Like I want to listen to that song on repeat now because it just left me, I guess, hanging a little bit. And I like writing in characters that give me a little bit of room for interpreting them, where I'm like not 100% sure that this person did this thing and for this reason, but I'm about 95% sure And I feel like most people who would read this book would agree with me, but there's still kind of room to say, well, you know, how did they do this? Well, it implies that they probably did it this way, but there's also the possibility that they could have done it that way. And that's the kind of like joint experience, I think, between like the author and the reader that I really enjoy about storytelling. I like that reader interpretation. I think there's like a saying of something like death of the author, where these days there's a lot of information about creators, writers, you know, artists of different types, and it's almost becoming like you can't separate the artist from the artwork anymore. Like, I used to believe that I didn't need to talk about what my process was, or what my artwork was, or what my intentions were, what my beliefs are, any of that stuff, because the art would speak for itself, and I could just be like an invisible person behind the curtains. But these days I feel like with social media and everything, that being known as the creator, especially as like an indie creator, it's a lost opportunity to like not let people know who you are, because that's one of the advantages, I guess, of like being able to find somebody online, is that you get that extra connection with the author or creator themselves that you know, maybe you wouldn't feel if they were some more traditionally published creator who's working for like a studio or with a book publisher or something. Those people kind of seem like farther away, I guess, less relatable. Versus, you know, somebody who's just a small creator online who talks very openly about their process and their intentions and, you know, their struggles and their triumphs. Those people feel more relatable. And I'm not doing this for any type of like fame or, I don't know, affirmation or anything like that. I'm doing this more to show, hopefully, that what I'm doing is relatable in the sense that, oh, this 40-plus-year-old woman with a full-time job and a family and fleas in her house is like making this game. So I could do it too. And she doesn't have any, you know, technical computer training background, and, you know, she was able to figure out some of this stuff, even if it's like if it's kind of sloppy and not optimized. She's trying to get better, and most important part is to just, you know, be doing something that you love, and making time for it and going for it, and finding that these things that a lot of people will, yeah, it's effort, but effort doesn't have to be tiring. Effort doesn't have to be like a grind, the grindstone, the toil, the suffering. Like, effort can actually be energizing when it's in a place that that you feel really good about. When it's for me, a form of self-expression and a way of self-empowerment, because it allows me to share a lot of thoughts that are on my mind. And I don't think of my work as being preachy, but of course some of my beliefs and my thoughts about like the world and the universe will sort of start to creep in to all my stories, I guess, by the time you reach the end of it. If you were to compare Soul Union with Arcane Dice Wars, and I'm going to compare those two because they're the two that I have the most like fleshed out in my game dev work. Even if you were to compare it to, like, I guess, the graphic novels that I finished in both Witch's Quarry and Offbeat, which are two, like, very different kind of stories, along with, like, Hungry, or Gatesmith was, like, the published title of it when I was published by Sparkle. So it's there are definitely reoccurring themes across fantasy, urban, western, darker themes, more lighthearted themes. There tends to be a lot of, I wouldn't say necessarily characters that translate and get, like, iterated over and over again, but I guess more like the broader themes, a lot to do with, like, finding your place in the world, with different forms of, like, nihilism as a concept of a beautiful but also hostile universe. Those are all, like, reoccurring themes in my work that, yeah, probably always going to be there somewhere in the background, even though they're never, like, really the main focus. I didn't really have anything else to talk about this week, so that's about all. I hope you have a good week, and I'm just gonna keep chipping away, and yeah, whatever you're working on or aspiring towards, don't forget to enjoy the process and take care. Bye bye.